Hey guys, welcome back to the Detour Live. I'm your host, Dan Jones, as always joined by a four-time national road champion from Australia who's left his wardrobe open, John Trevorrow. The voice of cycling, Phil Liggett, and the host of the Social Distance podcast and also rides a bike for Team Bike Exchange, Sam Bewley. Guys, I'm recording live from Iffy's joint, so I'm literally in the kitchen. He's in the spare room. It's all happening here, but he has given me a complimentary Heineken, so the service is fantastic. I'll start with you. Yeah, that's right. He's scabbed it from someone. Someone's left it in his fridge, I reckon, because it is a bit warm, a bit flat, but I'm not going to complain. Start with you, Sam. How's it all going?
I was going to say, if you're drinking Heineken, there's only one reason you're drinking that. It's because someone's trying to get rid of it out of their fridge, so they've taken it around to Iffy's. You don't drink anything out of a green bottle, Iffy.
Oh, well, there you go. I'm learning something all the time.
Well, there you go. How you found the Tour de France so far, Bills?
Oh, mate, it's been pretty exciting, hasn't it? I didn't see anything yesterday, but it wasn't much to see other than Cav putting his hands in the air again. But no, it's been a hell of a Tour de France. Obviously, those first few days were changed the landscape of the race dramatically with those crashes and obviously losing a lot of those top guys. But no, it's been very exciting, and I think it's going to be good to watch. Obviously, Pogacar's in control, but I'm sure he's going to have the kitchen sink thrown at him with a lot of guys, looking for breakaways and things. So very exciting tour so far.
And Phil, obviously, Mark Cavendish just continues to impress with a stage win number 3. And unfortunately, what does that make the tally? 3-1 against the Aussies. So I think we're going to struggle unless Ben O'Connor can rip one today 2 times over on 2. But how's the reaction been? Are they really just focusing on this record stage wins at the Tour now?
Well, as you know, Dan, I work for American TV these days, and they're running it big and high. And on the way home from the studio last night, the producer in the States sent me an email and said, how do I get in touch with Eddy Merckx? Because, of course, he wants to get Eddy in the show now on the day, perhaps, that Cav equals his record. It's quite possible. I know Eddy very, very well. So I'm trying to twist his arm because he doesn't like being interviewed too much, especially in the English language. But I hope it happens because Cav was untouchable. Mathieu summed it up. I've seen a quote from him saying that just at this moment in time, Cav is simply too fast. But it wasn't just Cav. Cav only had to pop his nose out in 100 meters from the finish. That team is invincible the way they guide him to the finishing line. And he's the first to say, guys, you've done it for me again, because he's untouchable. He's almost going to win this green jersey by default if he keeps riding like this, because he's not aiming for the green jersey.
Yeah, well, he's definitely going to break the world record on the amount of hugs he's given out. I think he's already broken the Tour de France record for hugs.
Well, Phil, you said you know Eddy Merckx really well. Is he just in a foul mood of late? Because he's taken swipe at Mathieu van der Poel again, and it's the same barb that he gave Caleb Ewan about disrespecting the jersey by pulling out of the race. I'll be honest with you, Eddie, I couldn't give a rat's. Like, he went in there.
I'll tell you, Dan, this is the way Eddie is. Eddie was a pure competitor. I used to say to Eddie, first of all, you know the story. I had the pro contract, and Eddie was in his last year as an amateur, and I never could get near him in a bike race. He'd already gone home before I finished. And I had the choice to be a pro or be a journalist. I took the journalist pro. And 20 years later, I interviewed Eddie at his home in Brussels. And I said, Eddie, you're the reason I never turned pro. He says, because I could never beat you. And he looked me up and down from the feet, slowly to my eyes, and he just said, you beat me. Pas possible. And that's the way he thinks. I said, well, why didn't you lose a few races? Because, as a journalist now, every time I ring my English newspaper and they say, who won? I say Eddy Merckx. They don't want to know because he wins all the time. I said, why didn't you lose a few races? And he said, it's because I only ride the races to win because the public came to see me win. This guy was unbeatable, but very, very rarely. He rode 1,500 races. He won 525 of them. Take out his seconds and thirds, there isn't many he didn't do well in. Eddie was different, and he's never, ever changed his opinion. He does not like bike riders who disrespect the sport. And as far as he's concerned, Mathieu van der Poel was always going to leave the race, whatever happened. And as soon as he lost the jersey, he left the race. And Eddy is always going to be very, very vociferous about that. That's not what Eddy ever did. And he's backed it. He's done it to many people. I must say, in my days as organizer of the British Milk Race, which I did for 22 years, and at the time was the major amateur bike race in the world, and it was a 12-day race. If I got rumour, and it only started, I have to say, with American riders coming, they planned things after the event. And they always planned to leave before so-and-so day of the race. I took a dim view as an organizer. I used to get livid and saying, they're going to walk off on the race. And I've paid for all their expenses to come and ride here. So, you know, I have a little bit of feeling for Eddy on this one. But of course, no, the times have changed. And Mathieu van der Poel, absolutely stunningly brilliant rider in every facet of the sport. And he wants to go to the Olympics. And we're in a year when you simply can't do both. I don't think you can finish the Tour de France and expect to ride well in the Olympic Games. So it's very difficult to form an opinion, but I know exactly where Eddy's coming from.
John, it looks like you're struggling with the light. So what I'll do is I'll ask you your opinion on it, and I'll come over and fix it.
I don't believe that.
You just keep talking, mate.
Well, the light I've got this wonderful light that Dan's brought in to fix my room, but wow.
Oh no, leave it like it was, Dan. It was fine.
I had to push the button. That's what that on button does. Oh, amazing. Look, I think Eddy's going too far. I mean, originally he didn't want to ride the Tour. Van der Poel's main aim this year was the gold medal on the mountain bikes in Tokyo. But then he felt, look, you know, his team do all of this. He said, okay, I will do as much as I'll start the Tour. And he's been absolutely sensational for the event. Would we have rather him not started? Because, come on, he just lit the damn bike race up. That performance he did on stage 2 was still one of the most staggering things I've ever seen. For him to take that sprint at the Bell Lap, all in, and then just a few minutes later, do it all again.
Yeah, hello? And a good thing, and John, in fairness,
I used the wrong picture. Sorry.
Well, that looks like Van der Poel to me. But when they published all the prize money won so far by the teams on the rest day, the team Alpecin Fenix, which is a wildcard team, had won the most money of the team, all thanks to Van der Poel, €65,000. Ineos Grenadiers had a torrid tour so far. They've won less than €4,000. I thought I'd never say that. It should be the other way around. That's what a normal tour would be like. So, okay, they've brought an asset, a big asset to the tour for sure.
You've been a little bit hard on some of the other riders in Alpecin Phoenix there, Phil, because Tim Miller won a stage. And Philipsen has been on the podium 4 times.
There you go again.
They've helped, yeah.
I'm beginning to think you don't like me now. Anyway, let Sam Bewley say something. The poor man wants to go.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Bills.
I'm enjoying listening.
Do current day riders actually really care if former riders give them a bit of a clip, like in the media?
Oh, I don't think so. Yeah, I think that I think bike riders have for lack of a better term, put up with journalists in all different ways for years and years. You know, like 9 times out of 10, journalists are positive. They write positive articles. Sometimes they don't. And I'm sure that it's water off a duck's back for most of those guys. And I think if he hit the nail on the head, like ultimately Van der Poel would have loved to have finished the Tour de France, but he made it very clear a number of months ago that his goal for this year is the Olympics. Comes around every 4 years or 5 years in this cycle. And you know, it's been his big target, and he knows next year he'll come back to the Tour de France, and he can go to as many Tour de France as he likes and finish as many Tour de France as he likes going forward. But this year, the big goal is the Olympic Games. It doesn't work well to finish the Tour de France and then go and race a mountain bike race at the Olympics. And I think if he had it his way, he probably wouldn't have gone to the Tour de France this year. But you know, obviously the sponsors wanted him there, and rightly so. He certainly delivered for them. So there was a compromise found that he would go there, he'd do his best, win a stage or 2, take the yellow jersey if he could, wear that with pride and respect it very, very well, I thought, and then go on to his main goal of the season. So, yeah, I mean, I understand that people saying, Eddy, for example, saying, look, you know, you get the Tour de France, it's the biggest bike race in the world, and then you you choose to withdraw from it. But it is, times have changed, like Phil has said, and it's a one-off. It's a circumstance that's just fallen this way for Van der Poel, and at the end of the day, he's provided a pretty entertaining 10 days that he was there.
Hey, you're a dual Olympic medalist and also rode on the road as well. How important is it, if you do have Olympic ambitions, to find a team that will let you have that balance, have that schedule? Because the team could have also said, will you ride to the end of it? But they've allowed him to do that. Yeah,
it's hugely important. And a lot of teams, I think a lot of teams would find it more difficult to allow that leeway, especially when you're talking about different disciplines. You know, he's riding for a professional road team and he wants to go to race the mountain bike at the Olympics. In my situation, I was riding for a professional road team, wanted to go and ride the track at the Olympics. So it is difficult, I would say, in some teams to find that allowance. And I know that it does happen. But obviously Van der Poel is the best rider in the world at the moment, arguably. And he's the best rider in the world in those two other disciplines as well. So I'm sure that riding for Alpecin Fenix it's in his contract that he competes across those three disciplines, because he was doing them before he was even racing professional on the road, and that's part of his agreement, I'm sure. So, and at the end of the day, man, like if you're riding for Alpecin Fenix and you've worn the yellow jersey at the Tour de France, you've won stages at the Tour de France, you've won classics, you've won Olympic gold medals in whatever discipline it is, it's not bad for the sponsors.
Iffy. Oh, jeez.
I agree with you 100%. And I'll tell you what, I am really looking forward to that Tokyo mountain bike race, because I've got a feeling that he won't win it, because I reckon that young Pidcock...
don't say that.
I reckon young Pidcock will beat him. He is sensational. He beat him just recently in a mountain bike race where he had to come from behind and put him away well. I think he's just as big a freak as Mathieu van der Poel. So I reckon it's going to be an absolutely amazing race.
I think you're right about that. So you're starting the Anglo-Aussie fight already for the Olympics now.
I'll take it even further. I'll go for Bewles. What's happened to Kiwi cycling, New Zealand cycling? This is the first tour that I can remember. No Kiwi in the Tour de France. What's happened?
Crossroad.
Not good enough. No, you're right. It's been many years since we haven't had a Kiwi in the Tour de France. I don't know how long, but I'd hazard a guess maybe even 15 years since we haven't had a Kiwi in the Tour de France. What's happened? Well, I guess George Bennett, who would be our most likely guy to ride the Tour de France and has done the last couple of years in support of Roglic. He had opportunities earlier in the season to go for the Giro d'Italia, and then he's focusing on the Olympics. So his plan was set in place to ride the Giro and then to prepare at altitude in Andorra for the Olympics. The Tour de France didn't fit in his preparation, so that's why he's not there. And then, the rest of us, I don't know, good question, Iffy. No, well, I've been coming back from an injury, so obviously I wasn't even anywhere near the framed racer tour this year, and then the other guys, it all depends on what the teams are going for. We've got Shane Archibald, who's in Quick Step, probably one of the hardest selections to make for a lot of races, and that whole dynamic change with the Quick Step when Sam Bennett didn't go and Cav went instead. But yeah, we'll be back, I'm sure. There's no doubt about it. We'll be back to having a few guys on the start line next year. I know Jack Bauer was very much in the frame this year to go for Team Bike Exchange, but he got sick. He got sick just before Swiss, and then he got sick during Swiss with that stomach bug that took out half the guys. So yeah. There's a number of reasons why, but I don't think it's ability based. I hope not, anyway.
No, it's not.
I didn't miss you guys at all, actually. I didn't even know you weren't there until someone sent a message through yesterday. There's no Kiwi. Oh, how about that?
You just proven why, again, you shouldn't drink Heineken and get your lippy. We've got a few viewer comments. Matthew Bordegon says, great to see you guys. And then old Tomo comes in and says, you've missed nothing, Matthew. Jeez, there's the clip. And then he thought that was pretty funny. Wendy Superfan, hi, Dan, John, Phil. Great to see you, Sam, on tonight. Free Ranger says, Cavs' return to his winning ways isn't a fairy tale. It's a perfect storm. The Wheel Wizard, or the Weather Wizard, says, oh, hi, guys. I've given up on weather forecasts after yesterday's when the wind changed 180 degrees during the stage. Ryan, this one's for you, Bulls. He says, great to see Bulls on. Should try to get him on the Lantern Rouge. When's the next social distance pod?
End of the tour. We'll do it. We're taking a bit of a breather. Jonesy's under the pump with the daily detour. So we're putting the social distance podcast off until after the Tour de France, aren't we, Jonesy? We'll come back with another well-respected, well-researched, and well-regarded podcast at the end of the Tour de France.
Oh, so John's not working on that one then, no? John's not working on that one.
No, that's right. Mathieu Bordigon again says, unfortunately, Eddy Merckx is living in the past. Times and racing have changed. Yes, he was a champion, but I really hope Cav breaks his record. Ooh, it's just piling in people wanting Cav to get it.
I don't disagree with Mathieu at all. Eddy probably is, but then he was brilliant in the past. And to this day, there's no bike rider alive equaled what he's achieved.
Now, this poses a good one from Wendy again. She says, does this mean Lucas will leave the Tour de France early now? Obviously talking about the Olympics. I mean, they're going to have to name who's going to replace the Aussie road riders for the Olympics, because obviously Jack Haig's not going and Cam won't ride on the road. They could always bring across a mountain bike rider, but there's definitely a spot that they're going to have to announce, you'd think.
Well, Lucas has already been named today. So Lucas...
well, there you go. That makes sense. I haven't seen it.
So that's what... And
you see, Dan, you don't understand. John really does follow this sport. You should have known
That's right. That's right.
And you know what? It's interesting. If he was really trying to get a GC spot still, then it would be really a challenge. But now that he's not in the hunt for GC, you can keep going on the tour and use it in the correct way to come off it with good form. So a bit like what Yates is going to do. And I think Yates is a big chance tonight. There you go.
Yep. Yeah. Before we quickly preview tonight's stage, a couple more comments. Ryan McMillan says, it's a privilege to see some of these riders who withdraw due to other commitments. I'd rather see them for a limited number of stages than not at all. And then Scooter, he said, Van der Poel also beat Tom in a recent mountain bike World Cup. Also, Tom DNF last weekend's World Cup, still recovering from breaking his collarbone. So there you go, John. Yeah, should have done a bit more research.
I did know that, but he's got 2 weeks, mate. He'll be fine.
All right, boys, let's look into the crystal ball. Bulls, when you look at a stage like this from a rider's point of view, unless you're a mountain goat, what are you thinking?
Try and get over that first climb, the first cat one, ideally. Go absolutely, I was going to say an appropriate saying there, but I won't. Go as hard as you can to get over that first climb. And then once you get to the slopes of Ventoux, that first time, you're okay. As long as there's a big group header, that'll be the time to call it. Have a big group there, ride that climb, nice solid pace, fast in the downhill. And then you just got to ride another solid pace up Ventoux. So I think for those sprinters and those group header guys, I think it's an okay stage. It's difficult. There's no doubt about that. Ventoux is very, very hard. And then for the GC guys, I think a breakaway would probably maybe have a tough time surviving today, depending on what UAE decide to do. But I think also Pogacar is going to be rated. I mean, he said in a recent interview that he doesn't look at Ventoux romantically like some other people do, but I think once you start riding up it might change a bit. And if you can have a stage victory up Mont Ventoux or going up and over it, in this case, it's a stage that most guys that are capable of winning it would want to have at some point in their career.
Mm-hmm. Well, if he's dropped off, I don't know what's happened. He's just disappeared. So maybe his internet's cut out, but I'm definitely not on his Wi-Fi. I brought my own dongle just in case. Didn't trust it. What do you think, Phil?
Well, just looking at that contour, the first way up, Sam, is not quite the same as the second way up, is it? Hence the difference in the categories of the climb. You just come in around Chalet Reynard and finish off the same bit there. But I remember Eros Poel once, who couldn't climb to save his life. He went to the bottom with a lead of about 20 minutes to Ventoux, 1994, I think it was. And Eros, who became for some reason good friends. His English was extremely good, the Italian. He went over the top of the huge lead, and it finished down the bottom, not in where we're going today. That's a different finish. And he won, having climbed and descended Mont Ventoux. And he's lived on that ever since, because he used to come over and ride. Remember the old days of the Commonwealth Bank race and stuff like that? And I think today we could have a surprise winner, because I don't know how much of a demonstration Pogacar wants to give now. He just seems to be drawn to the summits of mountains when he's free to fly. But I really couldn't pick a winner. What about Ben O'Connor, Sam? Do you think he'll have another go? He's marked now, of course.
Yeah, that's the problem now. He's second on GC, so he's not going to have he's not going to have the same freedom as he had a few days ago. Obviously, he's going to have to. He won't even be looking for the breakaway. He'll just be trying to. I think he'll be switching his mindset now to going, hey, maybe I can finish on the podium in this Tour de France, which means that you race obviously completely different to what he did last Sunday.
Yeah.
So he'll just be hanging with the GC guys, and for him to win, he's going to have to. For starters, the breakaway is going to have to be back, and then he's going to have to go toe to toe with Pogacar and Carapaz and these guys. So I don't know.
Alaphilippe, perhaps he's an amazing rider in many ways.
Yeah, it's a good stage for him, and he's far off GC now, so he's got plenty of freedom in the breakaway. And when you talk about good descender, and if we want to talk about and if you want to talk about the romance of Mont Ventoux, what better than a Frenchman in the World Championship jersey on Mont Ventoux to win the stage?
Cool, dear me. Now we are talking. I don't think Chris will do it though. Chris Froome, bad experiences.
Oh no,
Ventoux, but.
I saw a tweet this morning from him saying he's packed his running shoes in the back of the car.
That was after the incident with the winds, when he'd finished running without his bike. I remember commentating at the time, well, I don't know why he's running without his bike, Paul, because if he crosses the finish line, he'd be disqualified. You must have the bike with you. I was being a little bit facetious, but those are the rules.
Yeah. And there was all the. I remember after the stage, because Adam Yates could have technically been in yellow if the time stood, and I think there was a lot of hoo-ha, and Adam Yates actually said, "I don't want it. I don't want the jersey," which gave credence to go, all right, well, let's neutralise the time. But if he had a fight in a protest, I mean, they were sort of scrambling at that point.
Yeah.
But and then that was obviously the stage that Richie Port went up the arse of the motorbike, and it was just chaos. But it's Tour de France. Now, one other big talking point before we let you boys go was Cav was a bit critical. I saw on Cycling News of the tactics of Team Bike Exchange, saying that they'd much rather forfeit their chance of winning a stage by trying to light it up early to pipe Cav, because obviously in yesterday's sprint, I think there was only one rider around Bling in the final there, and Cav was saying, well, maybe if they had put their energies into the actual sprint itself, they could have had a chance. But, I mean, from a tactical point of view, Bills, I mean, what else are you going to do if you're clearly not going to beat him in a head-up sprint with pace? Doesn't that make sense why you'd be doing that?
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, I'm always going to stand up and back up my team. And
we're not one-sided on this show at all, mate.
but I also
we got no allegiances. Yeah,
full disclosure, I do love Cav. But no, it was a good tactic, because at the end of the day, they may not have even been planning to drop Cav, because they probably knew realistically they weren't going to be able to on those climbs. But what it does do is if Blink can climb better than Cav, which is arguably the case, the harder they go up there, the more pressure it puts on Cavendish. The climb is harder for Cavendish than what it is for Blink. So even though you're still going to go the line with Cav and you're still going to have to beat him in the finish, you're sprinting against a guy who's faster than you, but now is more fatigued than you. So you're trying to bring it back to a bit more of a level playing field and sprinting against a fast guy that's a little bit more fatigued. And yeah, okay, you could say the team used a couple of guys that they could have used for the lead out. But at the same time, we don't have a team there dedicated to doing lead outs. We've still got 3 or 4 climbers there. I mean, you could have used Durbo and Chris early on in the setup of the sprint, but ultimately Blink's still only going to be flying with Luca in those last couple of Ks. So I think the tactic was right. I think it was an opportunity to take some points in the green jersey competition on those intermediate sprints. And it was an opportunity to put Cavendish under pressure and hope that you were sprinting against a guy that was going to be, have the sting taken out of his legs a little bit and give yourself a better chance.
Well, it's going to be interesting the last week, particularly a couple of the big mountain stages, because he's definitely had to go into the red. And, Bling has a bit of a buffer now with second. I think he's 29 points in front of Calabrelli. So, we're sort of hoping for a bit of a Stephen Bradbury scenario here with the green jersey. But it'll be interesting that last week, particularly if you've been going so deep just to finish inside the time cup. It's definitely not done and dusted for the green jersey. So we'll have to wait and see. And another good story, Phil, is obviously Lachlan Morton. He crossed over Ventoux, and I think he then went on to do another 100 Ks of stage 14. And he said it was quite a religious experience because he got to do Ventoux solo, and there wasn't really anyone on the climb, and he's raised 414,000. If he said for World Bicycle Relief.
My goodness.
Does this inspire other riders, Bulls, to go, okay, well, maybe there is something in doing a ride or a journey for a cause, given that, the cycling community is pretty tight. You'll generally find a lot of people will get behind it.
Oh, for sure. And the sort of bike packing, as we call it, you might go on a 2 or 3 day trip with just with what Lockie's doing with your bike bags on the handlebars and stuff, with a sleeping bag and a change of undies. It's growing. It's getting very, very popular, even amongst the pro peloton. There's a lot of people that do it, and Lockie's certainly been the trailblazer for that. He's a bit like Pogacar of the bike packing world. He's a level above everyone else. So he's capable of doing. A lot of us aren't, and I wouldn't necessarily be so interested in doing that. But I would definitely be keen to do 3 or 4 day trips. And I think if you had, it's coming back to your question, there's an opportunity there to raise money and to fight for causes and all these sorts of things with a number of pro bike riders doing events similar to what Lockie's doing. Maybe not to the same extent, to the same extreme, but you got to take your head off to the guy. He obviously loves it, and he's a special kind of guy, mentally and physically, to be able to do it. And obviously he's doing what he loves and doing what he's good at to raise money for a really cool foundation.
Well, maybe you could team up with Swain Tuft if you're going to do something sort of off-road and a bit out there, because he'll definitely take to the next level. And speaking of good causes, before we let you boys go, Phil Kariega, obviously there was a big focus last night on the foundation, and they're doing fantastic work. And as we said yesterday, if you can give anything, it all makes a difference. And we were talking with Lindy off air, and the real sad part is obviously COVID. There's a lot of staff that are working for the foundation to do, huge conservation work that just simply haven't been able to get paid. They're doing this for the love of it and for the passion. And by donating, that's going to make a huge difference to keep this thing going. So that website's kariega.co.za/Peloton. And the support so far has been fantastic, but we've got to get to that 35 grand. And I'll tell you what, in the last week of the tour, Iffy and I particularly, we're going to get on the phones, mate. We're going to start hunting down a couple of these blokes, mainly Iffy. You know what he's like. He knows a lot of guys with deep pockets. Not so much myself.
Right.
So
I tell you,
we'll just go through the Rolodex and just go for it.
Our biggest donors have been Australia and the United States. It's absolutely fantastic. And they had 437 deaths in South Africa yesterday from the virus, and they had 16,000 new cases. The difference is we had 28,000 new cases last night with the COVID, but nobody's dying. It's just not worth mentioning that people dying. It's just we get it and seem to shrug it off now, but they can't get the vaccine enough and quick enough. That's the problem. So so they're very remote. They're hoping and praying they start to get bookings. Lindy's got some from September, because another month and I'll have to lay off. the anti-poaching team, who patrol thousands and thousands and thousands of acreage of land to make sure that wherever these rhinos roam, and the other animals too, that these poachers, who are very clever and heavily armed men, and they'll kill you, if we have to pull out the anti-poaching because there's no money to keep them in there, then they'll start culling the rhinos again, and we don't want that.
We can't let that happen, Phil. We can't let that happen.
No,
so as we said, donate. It's a fantastic cause. And Iffy, I was just saying, we're going to ring around in the last week and try and dial in some hitters so that we can get to that 35 grand target by the end of the Tour de France. We're not backing down, Johnny. We're going all chips in. And good to see you. Wi-Fi's back.
Good to see. Well, I think it's the fact that we're both sharing the one Wi-Fi. I think it might be the challenge.
I'm not.
Anyway,
I'm on a different Wi-Fi, mate. Anyway, we're going to let the guys go. You've been off for 15 minutes. I've had to hold the fort.
Sam's got to go training, and I've got to go and commentate.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Phil. Thanks for joining us, Sam. If he's frozen, it's all happening here at John's house. I'm not on his Wi-Fi, so at least one of us will be there. So we'll go to an ad break now from our sponsors. Thanks for joining us, boys. And on the second part of the show. No worries.
Good to see you, Phil.
Luck, Sam, for the rest of the year, mate. All the best. Okay.
Thanks, Phil. Hope you see you in the Aussie summer, maybe, when things like
I hope so too. I hope so too. Okay,
down at the Prince in St Kilda. See ya.
Wouldn't that
see
be
you
lovely?
soon, boys.
Take care. Okay, bye. Bye.
See you, boys.
We all love an open road, and often they're easier to find during quieter times of the year. In a Let's Go motorhome or camper van, you can road trip in comfort and style any time of the year. When the roads are quiet, you can get where you want quicker and easier without jostling for position. Chances are your destination won't be as busy too, which means you'll enjoy your travelling adventure even more. Plus, if you book a Let's Go motorhome or camper van in the off-season, you pay less, meaning you can travel longer. There's a type of motorhome or camper van for everyone, so you won't have to compromise on what you want. The whole range has the things you need to help create the perfect road trip experience, including heating and cooling, keeping you comfortable on the road all the time. Whether there's 2 or 6 of you, there's a motorhome for everyone. And in a Let's Go motorhome, your journey can be just as fun as the destination you want to reach. The open road is calling. Check out some of our great offers online today and start planning your next road trip. Rain, hail, or shine.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Thanks again to Bike Exchange. Whitey, it's all happening here. I've joined Iffy at his house. His Wi-Fi box is blown up. I brought a spare. It's like your BlackBerry, mate. It's all happening.
You guys taking lockdown to another level.
Yeah, mate. Oh, this is Detour at its finest. How are you travelling?
I'm good, thank you, mate. I'm somewhere in the south of France. We're obviously probably one of the queen stages of the race this year. Mont Ventoux 2 times, never been done before, and we're looking forward to it.
I see, Whitey, you've copped a bit of a whack, Bike Exchange team, from Mark Cavendish on Cycling News overnight.
Well, Mark Cavendish has just put a question out there about our takers. No, what we should do, we should just give him we should give him 5 stages on a platter, shouldn't we? I do apologise to Mark for racing. It's our bad. Our bad. We shouldn't challenge him. We should just give him the intermediate sprints as well as the finish stages. And I'm sorry, I won't let that happen again.
No. I was actually talking to Jerry today because he read it, of course, and he said, "What do you think?" I said, "They're too hard on him. They almost got him eliminated the other day. What are they trying to do?" You know, I said, "You're racing. What do you think? It's a bike race or something?"
Yeah, we are second in the green jersey competition. Look, Mark, what I've seen in the last couple of days is the old HCC Mark Cavendish is back. And
yeah.
He's back. He's got his mojo. And look, if he's thinking about us, that means we're in his head, aren't we?
Exactly.
So we know we can't match him head to head on a flat sprint. That's at the moment looks like nobody can, especially with all the best sprinters in the world gone home. But we've got to do what we can with what we've got, and that's put him under pressure on climbs, put him under pressure for intermediate sprints that are uphill, and we'll continue to do so.
So what's the plan of attack for today's stage, mate?
Yeah, mate, we obviously want multiple guys in the breakaway. Ideally Simon, Lucas, or Esteban, and with some company. And I would think that's going to take a little bit of time. It's a big day. I think it's the biggest climbing day of the tour, close to 5,000 metres of climbing. And obviously, one thing we've never done before is Ventoux 2 times. And look, it's warm here, but usually this is the hottest part of France. It's going to be 30 at the start here, but it will be a little bit cooler. But it's a big day in the office, and everyone knows how hard Ventoux is. But to do it 2 times in 2 hours, it's a big day in the office.
How's Yatesy pulled up after the rest day with his 18 and a half hours sleep?
What's that? Sorry, mate, you just cut out.
I said, how's Yatesy after the rest day with his 18 and a half hours of sleep?
Yeah, all the boys have come out of the rest day good. And yesterday was a relatively easy day. Besides a couple of times that we pushed for the intermediate sprints, it was there wasn't too much fight in the peloton to get into that break of the day yesterday. We were hoping it to kick off again in the final, and it just didn't. It kicked off a little bit in the wind, but there's a few walking wounded and guys who are out on their feet already, and we've still got a long way to go in this year's tour.
Now, Wendy Superfan has a question for you, Matt. How do you feel about Lucas in the Olympics now?
Well, it's a great honour and accomplishment for Lucas. Obviously, the downside is there that he's had to take Cam Meyer's place, and it really we feel sorry for Cam, who's had to pull out of the Olympics due to personal reasons. So, Cam's pulled out. The story behind Cam pulling out of the Olympics and I'm not sure how much you know of the story, but Cam was in Australia. Flew back, had to do two weeks quarantine in a normal hotel room without a balcony, was training on an ergo in a hotel room for 14 days, gets across to the Australian team in Brisbane, who was training on the track there. His dad's been sick for a year and a half, and he's gone over to see his dad before he dies. And then lockdowns happen, can't get on the velodrome in Perth, can't fly back to Brisbane to train with his Olympic teammates. And Cam Meyer's not going to the Olympic Games for a tracksuit. He's going there to try and win a medal for Australia, and due to all those complications, he decided to pull out of the Olympics and give someone else a chance.
Sad story. Sad story.
Got any other questions?
I have. So no pressure on Simon Yates, but I've backed him to win the stage.
He's told everyone in Geelong.
Put my hard earned on him. I reckon he's ready to fire, and it's his type of climb. So good. Yeah, good descent for him too. So it is, mate. Well, he's mine as well. But the hard part will be getting him into that move, getting him in with the right combination. But I think if you look at the situation with the general classification, it's going to be a pretty easy day for UAE to control. And I don't see any of the guys there in the top 10
being able to move because they'll all mark each other out. And I think there'll be 2 races today, and one up front in the breakaway. And then if any of those guys in the top 10 have a bad day, then other teams might carry on. But I think Pogacar will probably play it pretty cool today. He's not a big fan of hot weather, and he's got a real dominant lead on the race. So UAE, once the break goes, UAE will just ride a tempo, and he'll just follow who he needs to follow with a 5-minute lead. But yep, if we can get one of our climbers in the break, it'll be perfect. And Ventoux does suit Simon. And also, if he arrives in a small group, he is quite fast. So he's got a couple of options.
Are they expecting monster crowds, given that they're going around Ventoux twice? Are they expecting monster crowds on Ventoux, particularly given they're going over it twice?
Mate, I don't know, but like I said from the get-go, this has just been like a normal Tour de France with people with masks on, and even that's been scattered. So I think it's midweek; it's not a weekend stage. So I don't think the crowds will be as big as if it was a Saturday or a Sunday, but I think it'll be big, and it's going to be some exciting racing.
I can tell you there's a lot of Australians who are sitting up to watch how Ben O'Connor goes because, it's really captured people's imagination that he's now sitting second on the GC with a good little gap. So it'll be a big test for him because it's a bit steeper than what he went up the other day, but he's in great form.
Yeah, it will be. It'll be interesting to see how he backs up because obviously that effort he made 48 hours ago was a big one. And as everyone knows, 3-week tours are about how you can handle the load over the 3 weeks. So fingers crossed for him. He's backed up well.
There goes the BlackBerry, and now it's just this awkward. Man, I'm very uncomfortable. We can't switch to any other screen. All right, well, we'll rattle off. We're going to have to wrap this show up quick, mate, because this is just freaking me out. Jason Cruz says, I'm not sure I'd like to be the team known to be responsible to put Cav outside the time limit when he is 1 win short of the record and has such a following with the comeback Cinderella story. If it happened organically, which is probable, then it's not a worry. Realise it is a bike race and have to give Bling the best possible chance.
Well, you sort of answered your own question. I mean, they're racing to get points on him. They're not actually attacking him to put him out of the time. They're trying. There's one little hill before the sprint. They'll be trying to put him under pressure so that Bling can actually get 20 points back in that intermediate sprint. Then the challenge is up to Michael Matthews and his team to get inside the time limit. So they're not putting tax on the road or anything. They're racing a smart race. They're not physically going out to put him out. But today will be a real challenge for Mark. I think he'll get through, but it's going to be a real challenge for him.
Scooter says Docker is currently doing a bike packing event in Sweden too, top to bottom, 2,000K. That's a bloody fair effort, and Mitch is an absolute legend. Kate Campbell and Paddy Mills just been announced to lead Australia at the Olympics. So that's dual flag.
Oh, lovely.
That's great.
Yeah.
Stuart McIntosh says, I'd love to know how John went when the electric kettle was brought in. Being an older bloke myself, the technology can be a battle.
Thanks, Stewie. I've worked it out. You can push the button down. It's a lot easier than these damn computers.
Now, Iffy, Women's Giro overnight. Give us your race report, mate.
Yeah, well, it was a flat stage today, and there was a break up. I watched the highlights. Break of 5 girls up the road. Yes, and I've got here. And they only got caught about 3K to go. Well, I think one held off till inside 3K to go. But Lorena Webbs was the Dutch lady with DSM was just too quick. It was a beautiful lead out by the DSM team, and she creamed them. Emma Norsgaard, the Dane from Movistar, was second, with Marianne Voss, who didn't look like getting past them, third. Lucinda Brand. And overall, Anna van der Breggen still leads by 2 minutes 51 to her teammate, Ashley Mulman-Pasio, and Demi Vollering, her other teammate, 3 minutes. Lizzie Dignan at nearly 6 minutes, 5:53 is next. So, I would say she's doing a Pogacar and a Pogacar in this race. She's the Pogacar of the women's Giro Donna.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to have to wrap this up because this big full screen is just making me really, really uncomfortable. Thanks for our guests, Sam Bewley, obviously Phil Liggett, Matt White. Don't forget again to donate to the Kariega Foundation and get behind us on YouTube /The Detour Podcast. Like, share, subscribe. Good luck to all the riders out there today. And we're going to be glued to the screen because it's going to be a ding-dong battle. And Iffy's tip is Simon Yates. So if you like a bet, gamble responsibly. Iffy, how could he be wrong? He backs winners all the time.
Well, I picked Mark Cavendish for 3 out of 3. That wasn't bad.
Yeah, that's right. You really went on a limb there. And I reckon you tip Pogacar after stage 8 to win the Tour as well. So great stuff, mate. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Stay tuned. Cheers.